So you really want to have a long-term mindset. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's like the opposite.
Top creators like Abdaal, Justin Welsh, they have created such amazing video testimonials for you and shared them with their following. Before everything, I want to ask you, tell me, what is your exact process for getting testimonials from your customers?
And so when you look at the 4 types of communities, on the left, that's really connection driven. And on the right, it's curriculum driven. And so Exit 5 is driven by the connections. That's the power. We created ways for members to connect with each other, because one of his big concerns, and this is one of the most common concerns in the community world, is I don't want this to be the Dave show where everyone's just showing up to sit around and listen to Dave. One-to-one introductions and connections is really powerful, and that's what makes people feel more a part of a group or part of a community. Because when you're on a Zoom screen with 9 other people, you're feeling like, I don't really know these other people, and they're all feeling that as well. And so one of the things early is you can just introduce people. It's like, hey, John, meet Joe. I think you two would really hit it off. People have the tendency or the muscle memory to check Slack or to check Facebook and not to check your community. So they're just checking the tool. One framework you can think about is we help blank achieve blank so that blank. In the early days, there were not a lot of people in there, which means there's not a lot of posting. So I did feel that pressure. What was really interesting to me was they didn't always have questions. They didn't always have things to share. They just showed up to listen. In this world where AI is going to be eating up everything and just dominating, and it's going to be crazy and scary, and none of us can fully comprehend what's going to change in the next 5 or 10 years. The good news is people are not going to change in terms of they want to be connected with other people, right?
Welcome to Beginner Maps, where we interview operators of top community businesses so that you can replicate the best of what these community builders have already figured out. Today, I am thrilled to have Jordan Godbey with us. Jordan is the guy who's building communities for top creators like Justin Welsh and Abdaal. He is the founder of Growth University, a company that provides products and services to help creators build and run a successful community quickly. So if you're interested in starting a community business, this episode is for you. Welcome to the show, Jordan.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. And let's talk about your community business, Jordan. Jordan mentions in this interview how important one-on-one connections are to make members feel a part of the community. Because in a world with endless content, often AI generated, authentic connections with people who get it is huge. It might just be what your people need to get the outcomes they're looking for. We've created the tool to help you foster such connections on autopilot. Using curated connections, you can create matching programs that match members based on complementary skills, goals, and backgrounds. You can also use it to host a member directory that is designed to foster connections. The best part is it all works over email, so you can use it no matter which platform your community is on. Some of the top communities like Journalist World, Limited Supply, and Rails Foundation are already using it. So check it out at curatedconnections.io or go to the link in the show notes below. Now back to the show. How do you describe the customers of Growth Community?
Yeah, great question. A lot of times I think of them as experts, and I know that can be very vague. It's kind of this bucket that is a little bit hard to describe. It might be a thought leader, a coach, a consultant, an author, a speaker, but it's someone who has developed some level of expertise, mastery, experience in a specific niche or subject, and they want to teach that, and they want to help other people be able to learn it and get, breakthroughs in their own lives. And so I'm helping these types of experts plug their expertise into a proven community model so that they can serve more people than they would if they just worked with them one-on-one or in small groups.
I love this. And I noticed that you mentioned experts and not like creators or people who have a big audience. And that makes me think that you clearly have a line of separation between them.
Yeah, because sometimes if you have a big audience, you just might be considered an influencer, right? And it's like you make daily content, TikToks, or you're kind of in entertainment and things like that. And you certainly could have a community. that's not really my specialty and my niche. So we don't work with as many people like that. But in many ways, the community model is ideal for anyone who does have an audience and who wants to serve that audience better and deeper. And, one of the best things about this model is many people might have a large email list or followers on certain platforms, but you are largely just pushing your content out one directional to the audience. And so just by taking that audience and saying, come and hang out with me in this community, now you're creating member to member connection and interaction. So even if we are all fans of Mr. Beast, for example, and we just like to watch the videos, we might have other things in common that if you were to bring all of the members and followers together, maybe we would create local meetups, or we would create some of our own content because we have the same type of humor or interests. And so there's many ways to unlock more and more value when you bring together people from a kind of a similar following or similar audience. But the thing that I mainly specialize in is really helping people achieve transformations through communities. And so a lot of times this looks like a course or a coaching program or some type of training where everyone in this program is working kind of together on the shared mission to achieve the same or very similar outcome in their life. And the expert is there to just facilitate that journey.
I like that. And I like that you mentioned you're creating communities which lead to transformations for the member. And this is something that we will talk more about in a bit when we discuss your 10K on our community blueprint and what I took from it and my follow-up questions to that. But before that, I want to talk about your journey a little bit. So
Mhm.
you just posted today, and I saw it in my interview research as well, that you started your whole community building journey basically just like 4 years ago. Is that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And in 4 years' time, like you have now built communities for the top creators like Ali Abdaal, Justin Welsh. They have, if anybody spends time on your page, they will see something that just blew my mind is that all of these people that you're working with, they have created such an amazing video testimonials, recorded those testimonials for you and shared them with their following. And like everything, I want to ask you, like, tell me, what is your exact process for getting testimonials from your customers? Because that is such a general thing, and I struggle with it so much as an entrepreneur. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I used to struggle with it as well. And it is such an important thing as an entrepreneur. It's basically your resume. It's kind of the proof. It's like your certificate that you actually can do what you say you can do. Because without it, you're just sounding like everyone else saying, I can do X, Y, Z. And so um, there's several ways to do it. I've even seen some automated tools now and websites and things like that. I've never used any of those. So I just do it a very simple, old school way. And so there's a few principles here. One is timing. You want to strike when the iron is hot. So, right when you have an amazing win, or there's a milestone, or there's some type of exciting event like you launch and they're really, really happy, that is the perfect time to say, hey, I'm so glad that this went really well and you're really, really happy. It would help me out so much if you would be willing to do a testimonial for me. And like 99% of the time, they're definitely going to say yes. But you have not finished the project. You have to see that all the way through to the end. And so there's a few more steps. So getting the commitment up front is the first thing. You can even precede that, right? Like early into the sales process. Like, hey, I know that this is going to be an amazing experience. And once it's all said and done, if you're really, really happy, it would mean a lot if you would be willing to give me a testimonial. And they're always going to say, yeah, because that's always later in the future if everything is perfect. And so then when that actually comes, you can kind of remind them of like, hey, now is the time to give me a testimonial. And then they say, sure. And I always say, would it be helpful if I sent you a few bullet points to kind of make it easy for you and just structure what would make a great testimonial? And then they always say, yes, send me a script, send me the bullet points. And so what I like to do is either write out some specifics. I never tell them like, read this or say this. It's always organically from their mouth. But what I will do is I would say something like, please talk about why did you choose to work with me? Right? Because many people can just figure it out on their own, or I'm busy, or I didn't want to learn a new thing. So that's important to kind of give other people a bit of a framing of why they even reached out. And then what was the biggest benefit that you received? Like, what was the biggest value? And then I also ask sometimes for what was like a surprise in the experience that maybe you weren't expecting to get from this, from working together. And then, at the end, what would you say to other people who might be interested, or would you give a recommendation, And then I put a time frame around it. I say this can be really short and easy, kind of 30 to 90 seconds. You can even just do an iPhone video, or you can do a Loom, nothing fancy. Don't stress out about it. And a lot of times that will come back fairly quickly, but it's almost like the sales process where you need to follow up because it might be a few days, might be a week. And so I've had to touch base a couple of times, but it's always worth it in the end when you finally get that. So just making sure that you kind of stay with it all the way to the end, because that's really how you're going to build up your initial resume and authority in whatever you're doing.
Wow. That was your mini masterclass on getting a testimonial, guys. I need to be applying this for my own business and getting testimonials from my happy customers, like striking when the iron is hot. I've lost out on so many great testimonial opportunities now that I think about it. So thank you for sharing.
Sure. Yeah. And
But
so I even have
yeah,
that little script like ready in an Evernote so I can just copy and paste it. So just, templatize the whole process. Just make it a streamlined process. And, I've also missed out on a ton of them, but now going forward, you won't.
yeah, I love that. And yeah, this is giving me so many ideas. Okay, I'm gonna act upon this. Now, getting back to the reason why you got these testimonials. So let's talk about Justin Welsh, for example. So I saw his tweet where he wrote something like, Jordan spent $150 with me in 2022. He used what he learned to build a brand online, a brand that I discovered in 2024. And I'll spend $51,000 with him this year. So tell me about this transformation of yours, because 2 years ago you were taking Justin Welch's course, and what was it that you were trying to do, and how did you even get into the game of building communities for creators?
Hmm. Yeah. So to answer that question, I'll have to take you back in time a little bit. So kind of the quick summary of my career is that I have always been an entrepreneur my whole life, but I have struggled with bouts of employment when my entrepreneurial things didn't work out and I had to go get a job for a few years. And so, outside of just generic entrepreneurship, my main interests and skill sets were in IT stuff, technology, and then also digital marketing. And so, I ran a digital marketing agency for a number of years. I worked with many, many clients in that world. I worked inside of corporate companies doing IT and project management and technical things. And then I've worked in-house as like director of marketing and director of product and that kind of thing. So really in this kind of digital world. And I have always relied on courses to fuel my education. I didn't go to school for marketing or anything like that. I just always had a passion for learning the things that I was really interested in and was going to seek out the knowledge, whether it was books or I really liked online courses. Even, 15 years ago, some of the only resources out there to learn some of the more cutting edge things like SEO. When I was running an SEO agency, you can't learn these things in school and it's changing so fast that the best way to learn it is from a practitioner that's doing it every day in the trenches. And so that's really how I built my career. And through that process, I realized that the thing about online courses, the problem with them was that most people don't finish them. And so it's really easy to sign up for them and to buy them and to get excited that you're going to learn this thing. And then you log in and you realize there's 47 videos that you have to watch and it's 13 hours long and you're really busy and tired and all these things. And there's no accountability and there's no coach and there's no feedback and there's no one to ask questions and there's no one else but you and the whole world that's going through this program. At least that's what you think and that's how it feels. And so you're completely isolated. So it's really hard to do hard things by yourself when you have no support. And so I had joined some different coaching programs and some courses that started to have like Facebook groups and things like that. And I could immediately see the benefits there. And I was working in house at an online course company for 3 years prior to going solo. And they had hired me for all of the different skills that I had had around marketing and product and leadership. And they said, basically, we have all of this really hard to create content, this medical content in radiology. And we want to build the world's best online course, online school for radiologists. Can you take this content and figure out the business model and the pricing and the marketing and make this successful? And I said, yes, that sounds like an awesome opportunity. So I went and I ran with that. And one of the things that we realized was that community was really important as well, because it's actually a very small little niche within medicine is radiology. And we were even a smaller niche within that, which was MRI. And so in those worlds, everyone knows each other and it's very easy to kind of get connected and you go to different same events and conferences and things like that. So I knew that for my future, I wanted to get out of services in a way of just doing like SEO and these kinds of generic Facebook ads and websites. And I wanted to do more in this online courses and working with experts because I loved the business model and how we were able to help people all over the world. But also with the downsides of online courses, I knew that that was probably not the future. And so the future is really community and doing community-based businesses and community-based transformations. So when I was working at that company, we were on Teachable. And Teachable, as you may know, a lot of their executives, after having a lot of success at Teachable, could kind of see the next thing that was coming. And so they went off and they started Circle. And so during that time, I met some of those guys and became friends and watched them start Circle from day one, from the ground up, and really had to make a decision of what I wanted to do with my career. And I decided to go all in on this community business model. And so I, went off on my own, like you saw in the post 4 years ago, and decided, okay, I'm going to start a new business. Unlike before, when I was doing a digital marketing agency and I would basically do anything for anybody, companies big and small, all just different types of marketing, I decided I'm going to get really specific and really, really niche. And I'm only going to do this one thing on one platform for one type of customer. And that was building Circle communities, largely for coaches and course creators. And so that's what I did on my own for about a year or so. And then I brought on another guy to help me. And we continued to do that for another year. And then we have just kind of gotten so much experience and we've gotten better and better at our process and our templates and our tools and our thinking around it. We've worked with more and more people, and we've kind of risen up in the Circle community and in the Circle world as well. And they realized that, hey, the software is great. The software is world class, but then there's this missing component that an expert needs, which is really that strategy and that business model and pricing and delivery and what should I include and just all of these things that a tool cannot just magically do for you. And that's really where we came in. And so that's the gap that we have, filled as being that strategist and consultant. So we've just gotten really obsessed about this niche and the types of people that are attracted to it. We really love working with them because they really care about seeing the results. It's not just about making money. Like the online course world, there's a little bit of a dark side of the world, or kind of a scammy, just like making money grab, and then you never hear from them ever again. And if you email them, you're not going to get any help. And some people like it because it is passive income, where you just make the course one time and then you never have to do any more work. But the people that are drawn to community, it's a very different type of person, because when someone joins, you are starting your relationship with this person in the community. And so you have to show up and you have to help them and serve them, or else they're not really going to get any value, depending on the model. But basically, that's kind of how most of them work. And so these people really care. My clients really care about helping others and delivering their experience and helping people achieve transformations. So I couldn't be happier with my decision and how it has all turned out. And I really do feel like I'm just getting started. I'm so passionate about it, and we've stayed so focused, which has been such a blessing because we've been able to make so much progress in a very short period of time. And there's just incredible opportunity everywhere around us.
I love this. This is such an amazing story of, you seeing an opportunity in the market and having the conviction to chase it, like, and focus on it, like, very specifically, like you're gonna build community only on this one platform that just launched basically, and you're gonna do it only for the coaches and, experts, not for businesses, not for all of these other people who probably have more means to pay you. And you chased after it, and now you're like world class at it. So can you tell me, how did you get maybe your first 10 customers? And I'm curious because I'm going back to the Justin Welsh tweet about how you bought his course in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious to know more about your process of getting customers, as like when you were just starting out.
Yeah. Yeah, good question. It has really evolved over time. And so that's something to think about, is you can't just copy and paste someone else's strategy if you are not at the same level or stage that they're at. So today, Justin Welsh and his business is at like stage 10. And so the things that he's doing maybe aren't right for you if you're at stage 1 or 0. And so in the early days, you're going to do the Silicon Valley advice of do things that don't scale. So you're going to call everyone, email everyone, text everyone, and say, this is what I'm doing. Do you need a community, or can I help you? Do you know someone that does? So that was kind of what I did. I just reached out to my network and I let people know what I was doing. I started to post a little bit online just to let everyone know, hey, I made a huge career change. This is what I'm doing if you're interested. But I don't have a really large following. So it's not like that brought in a lot of business. I literally started with one client that I knew that I had worked with before in a different capacity, and then started emailing old clients from the marketing days and just people in my life asking for referrals, introductions, all that kind of stuff. And so that led to the first client and the second client. And then one of those said, oh, you should talk to another person. So I started doing that, started posting more, really just sharing in public my journey and what I was learning and what I was doing. And people really like that, where it's in real time versus this is something amazing that I did and 3 years ago. It's like, this is what I'm doing this week, last week, this month. So that was bringing in some interest. And then the other thing that I did was, because I attached myself to the platform of Circle, I was able to become one of the official Circle experts. And so for the longest time, there was, I think, roughly 6 of us Circle experts. And you had to go through an interview and a vetting process and all of this other stuff, and show, your results and your experience. And so within the 6 Circle experts, there was quite a bit of diversity. Some of them only really focused on strategy and business models and things like that. Others were very technical developers. Some were only doing consulting calls, hourly calls. And then I was one of the only that was really doing a full service package. And so we focused on delivering a productized service. And so what I mean by that is we would say, hey, we have a community launch package where we're going to take you through these 3 phases of designing out the community, building the community, and launching it. And this is how much it costs. And the price would change over time. We would just increase it as we would learn more and get better. But that was how simple the sales process was. And I remember people would say, after I talked to them for a long time, they're like, okay, well, do you have enough information to send me a proposal? And I said, yeah, but like, what do you want to know? And they're like, well, how much, will it cost? How long will it take you to figure it out? And I was like, I'll just tell you right now how much it costs. Like, because it's standardized, right? Like, we've really made it so simple. And that's what I want to communicate is, in the early days, you really want speed and simplicity. And so on my website, for the longest time, you could just come to the website, and then everywhere would be a link that would just say book a call. And it would go straight to my Calendly with wide open availability, because I wanted to talk to anyone and everyone that was interested who might be able to become a customer. Because in those early days, you're looking for product market fit, you have all the time available, and you need customers. So optimize for that, right? Later, now at the stage that I'm at now, it's not as easy to get on my calendar. I have other things in play where you need to first, sign up for something or go through an email sequence, or we have a sales guy that does some of our calls as well, that some people are routed to him. And my Calendly availability is also much less than it was back in the day. I've got like a couple days a week that are available. And sometimes people will say, hey, there's nothing available for 3 weeks. And I'm like, yep, that's what it is. I can't, we're kind of booked up a lot right now, but it's really good. So as we go through those phases of growth, things have obviously changed. Now I'm starting to push more on social media and on content marketing and doing these like lead magnets and things like that. But yeah, it's like, look for the opportunities, look for any unfair advantages, look for relationships, and just try to tap everything in your power to build that first spark of momentum, and then just keep that going.
Yeah, this is such a universal advice, like whether you're starting a community business or a consulting business or even a software business. Like, I feel like this applies to us as well with the software business. So yeah, this is actionable for me as well. Now, you've obviously honed in on your craft over the years of building communities for all of these creators and experts. And you created this amazing 10K community blueprint and launched it, which was wildly successful. We'll be linking it in the show notes. And I went through it like it was a 5 lesson course. I went through all of it and took notes. And I've got my follow-up questions for you now. And I think this will be interesting for the listeners as well, because what let me just give like a brief on what the course was. It was basically giving like your framework about how every community, like any community, can be divided into 4 types. There are 2 scales, and I'll be putting up the image over here now if you're watching this on YouTube. But there's like the peer member driven community, which has low price and it's very unstructured. And on the other end, you have the community powered course. And on the higher price segment, you've got the proximity community, and then finally you have the transformational community. I'm going to go through each of them one by one and ask you some of the questions that you have so that the listeners listening to it can get more clarity over these concepts. So the first one is the peer community that you talk about. This is a community where members are talking to each other, and you've worked with a wonderful example of this community, which is the Exit 5 community. And while doing research for the show, I saw that they're doing like 1.5 million in ARR and started by a solopreneur, which is crazy. So one community, one guy with a team, but doing north of $1 million, and the subscription costs like $25 a month or like $30 a month or something. So not too expensive and still a great business. Let's talk about it. And can you tell me what happens in that community?
Yeah, so I think this is a great example of someone that you might consider a thought leader or an influencer or just someone with an audience. And so Dave's journey is that he started at the bottom in marketing, like a marketing intern, and then rose over 10 years to being a CMO at top tech startups. And throughout that journey, he just learned so much and shared it on social media, largely on LinkedIn. And so over that period of time, he became really well known in the B2B marketing space, especially as he became a pretty visible CMO at a top tech startup. And so he grew a really nice following. And he thought to himself, there's something that I should do with this following. Like, how can I better monetize it or serve it or whatever? And so it started out very, very simply. I think he had a Patreon account where people could literally just donate if they liked the stuff that he put out, and he would do some extra bonus private episodes of like a podcast, basically. And from there, it grew into a private Facebook group that people would pay like $20 a month for. And eventually, he had generated thousands of members. And that's when he reached out to me and said, hey, I want to bring this to Circle. And I know that this can be so much better than what we have available on Facebook, but I don't know how to do it. I don't want to do it. I just want I want the magic and I want it to be all done for me. And so I said, perfect. That's exactly what we can do. And so this is a perfect example for us, a perfect client, because he has the product market fit and he has the audience and he already has a successful business. It's not like he's saying, I have this idea. I think people are going to want to join a marketing community, but you really are not sure. You haven't validated that. And so he knew that this was already working, but we had so many ideas of how we wanted to generate more value. So we created ways for members to connect with each other because one of his big concerns, and this is one of the most common concerns in the community world, is I don't want this thing to be all about me. And so his words were, I don't want this to be the Dave show where everyone's just showing up to sit around and listen to Dave and wait for Dave to show up today. And what's he going to tell us? No, no, no. You all are doing this stuff all day, every day. You have great experience and expertise and perspectives on what's happening in marketing. Let's share this together. So he's a facilitator. He's created a container in a place that did not exist before. So that's the value. And so when you look at the 4 types of communities, on the left, that's really connection driven. And on the right, it's curriculum driven. And so Exit 5 is driven by the connections. That's the power. That's the value, is that you can ask questions that world-class marketers are going to see and are maybe going to answer. You can be on calls with them. You can listen to them, learn from them if you're kind of early in your career and you aspire to be in their position one day. And those are hard things to go out and find and replicate anywhere else. Of course, we have social media, but the idea of these communities is that you can go much deeper and people are a bit more connected, more involved, more interested. And so, yeah, he's done a great job at that movement of B2B marketing. And he has other ways that his business is growing, like sponsorships. I believe they're doing their first in-person event. They have the podcast. And so it's really become a media business. And so for people that are interested in content and producing lots of content, if you do have a newsletter, then the community is a really great next step in building up the value of what you're doing.
I love this. And I want to double click on something that you said, which is really interesting, which was that he didn't want it to be the Dave show and he wanted you to help him make like member to member connections.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's the general like strategy that you, or like maybe not strategy is a bit loaded, but what's the general philosophy that you go with to
Mm-hmm.
empower more member to member connections in a community that was started by a creator? And because like for a creator, like that's the hook, like it's the creator himself or herself. So how do you go from there to here?
Yeah. So for us, it really starts with the offer of the community. What is this place all about? Why would someone join this? And this is something I see a lot of people struggle with. They say, well, it's a community for marketers. That's why you should
Yeah.
join. And that's not very compelling. it gets this very lukewarm, mediocre response of like, oh, okay, it sounds a little bit interesting, but how much does it cost? And then you say, oh, it's $10 a month. You go, I don't know. It's like, what? Why would you not pay for it? Because you haven't really communicated the value and the transformation. And so the offer, like it's really important to get clear. And so with Exit 5, we have things in there like this referral engine marketplace where you can ask for, what types of agencies should I talk to about this kind of goal that I have, or a need, or a tech, or software products, or does someone have a good resource for this type of thing? And so getting those really curated high quality referrals and recommendations, that's a valuable aspect of that community. Another one would be, we created this private job board. And so before a company would ever post that they're hiring for someone online, a lot of them first go to Exit 5 and say, hey, I'm looking for a paid ads person or a copywriter. And another member can say, oh, that sounds really great. I think I'll apply for that and switch jobs to you. And so because they're both Exit 5 members, they immediately have a connection and a bond there. And so they can solve their real life problems of, I need a good person and I need a good job. They can connect those things very fast instead of just putting it on monster.com or Indeed or whatever people are using now to put it out to the internet. And so none of that requires Dave, right? That's not
Yeah.
about him at all. And it's about the mindset and the culture of people that are attracted to being in a B2B marketing community and talking about cutting edge stuff. That's a certain type of person who's ambitious enough and motivated enough to seek that out. And so that's another type of value, is like the small sliver of people in there is a unique type of person. And so being able to be connected with those people, getting something in front of them. So another thing that we did is, when you really think about how do we create member to member connection and make it not all about Dave, I would say it comes down to two things. So the offer is at the top. That's the big idea or the big ideas. But then to make it more practical, it's architecture. So how are we actually creating the spaces and the space groups inside the community? If we give people the right container, it's like putting them in a gym. And if we structure the gym's layout appropriately, then people will understand how to use different things and they'll make the most out of the space. Whereas if we just put them in a giant room and all the stuff was shoved over to one side, they just wouldn't have the same experience. So the architecture is really important. And then the next would be the programming or the events, right? What are the recurring rhythms and themes of this community? If it's always weekly Q&A with Dave, then that sounds like we all just need to show up and sit around and wait for Dave so that we can all ask him questions. And so one of the things that we did was we designed a different type of event that had nothing to do with Dave. And we called it Coffee Chats. The idea is you could go in so many different directions with Coffee Chats. And what I mean by this is, this would be a member-led event where we would look for leaders and volunteers from the community who are always posting and commenting and saying, hey, would you run a talk about AI, and just bring people together? And you don't have to be the guru and know everything. You just be the guide. And you say, hey, everyone, what are all of your top questions about AI? Or who has something really interesting that you've learned in the last month about AI? Can you share it with us? And so they're facilitating these types of talks and discussions, again, with this really interesting group of people. And Dave doesn't even have to show up. And people
Yeah.
walk away going, wow, that call was amazing, right?
I love this. This is so cool, and you can really see how this goes from, value being created in one direction to value being created like everywhere, and it's so much more scalable.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And so even with the coffee thing, our mind was blown because we were like, we could do 25 of these. Like we can do
Yeah.
CMO only coffee chats. We can do AI coffee chats. We can do just take it in all these different directions. Anything that is a theme like paid advertising, that's always changing. Sometimes the prices are going down, sometimes they're going up. Sometimes Instagram is the best platform and then it's TikTok or whatever. And so we want to have these cutting edge conversations with people that are actually doing this on a day-to-day basis and understand what is working today. So there's a lot of different ways that we can take that. Even career driven, people who aspire to be a director or a CMO one day can come, or a product marketer, or, all of that kind of stuff. So that's something that, yeah, was really exciting, how many different directions we can create member to member interaction.
This one is a great example of somebody who already had a proven business model and a proven community. But you also mentioned in the course a lot about how anybody who's just starting out, who doesn't have a huge audience, they can also create a business like this. And the step for that is basically finding 5 to 10 people from your network, setting up a community on Circle, and building personal connections with those 5 to 10 people. Now, uh, this is where I had a follow-up question. Like, let's say I have those 5 to 10 people, I've
Mhm.
got them in my circle space, it's well designed, all of it. But what do I do with those people in that circle space? Like, how does that turn into a community?
Yeah. So I think you have to decide which model you're using first. So I wouldn't recommend, if you don't have any type of audience, just starting with the peer community, because it's very low price, very low ticket. So let's say $10 a month. Even a lot of people say that they'll do it for free. And so the goal is to get to a certain amount of revenue where you can support yourself, you can grow a business, you can have a great life. So you need to figure out, is this model or this hypothesis going to work, and is it going to get you to that revenue number? If you only had 10 friends and you could charge them all $10 a month, you're not making a whole lot of money, and you're going to need a lot of people until you can figure out if it's going to work. And that's really difficult to do. Whereas, let's say, Nitesh, have started a software company, you understand technology, you understand sales and marketing, all these things. There might be other people that would say, wow, I wish I were in your shoes. You seems like you have such a great thing going on. I'm just a developer, but I don't know all of this other stuff that you've seemed to figure out. And you could say, well, I will coach you. I will teach you. I will put you in a group of other developers that are trying to create startups, create ideas, sell them, get traction, and hit whatever revenue milestone to go all in on their idea. And so if you put together a vision and a journey and a transformation, which would be discover your profitable software idea that you can become a solopreneur full time, like that kind of promise, that's not something you're going to be able to achieve in a week or in a month, right? It's probably going to take 6 months, a year, usually longer than we think it will. And so you can say, hey, this is going to be a year-long thing, and I'm going to coach you every week. I'm going to answer your questions. You're going to show up with new things that you've been learning or you've been trying, and you're going to get my support and feedback. You're going to be in a group with 9 other people exactly like you. And so that's the type of thing that would be maybe like a proximity community, like a mastermind. And you can charge a lot more for that, because if someone, maybe they have a full-time job and they're a developer at work, but they don't like working in that system and they really want to be solo and on their own, but they don't know how to bridge the gap. And so bridging the gap for them would be really valuable. And if you said, I can do that for you for $10,000 for a year, and you pay 1,000 per month or 800 per month or whatever, and if you find just a few people, now you have a very sustainable and very profitable business that actually isn't going to take you a ton of time, maybe 3 to 5 hours a week. And it's extremely scalable, because if you run into another developer in the same position, you can say, hey, come join our group. We've got 10 other guys like you. And the more people you add, it gets better and better for everyone. And so that's what I would recommend. So it's really based on a few things: is what can you offer and what can you provide? Do you have a skill set and experience and expertise that other people would want to learn from you? And then, do you have a large audience already or not? And so if you don't have any type of audience, or it's small, you typically are going to want to start high ticket, because it's going to be very hard for you to find and acquire many customers. And so you need each one to be a bit more significant on the revenue side, so that you can quickly hit your profitability or sustainability number, so that you can continue doing this. Whereas maybe you do have that bigger audience, you can do a lower ticket thing. Maybe you record a course, or you have that peer community and you're selling that for not that much, but you're able to get a lot of people in. So that's how I would suggest thinking about the direction that you go down.
Hmm. I like this, and this brings up a lot more questions in my mind. I'm gonna try to take them one by one. So, when starting a mastermind community, the idea is to provide more help, like personalized help, to somebody to take them through a transformation. The question I have is that, like, it's by definition, it's like me helping them. How do I make it less of me and more of them helping each other? I
Yeah.
realize that since it's a high ticket offering, there will be a lot more like me present in the equation. But how do I start including a little bit of member to member
Hmm.
interaction where they're having useful conversations with each other and helping each other out?
Yeah. So I think there's a few things you can do. One, as you would know, the one-to-one introductions and connections is really powerful. And that's what makes people feel more a part of a group or part of a community. Because when you're on a Zoom screen with 9 other people, you're feeling like, I don't really know these other people, and they're all feeling that as well. And so one of the things early is you can just introduce people, and you can do that in a private chat and one-on-ones, however, but it's like, hey, John, meet Joe. I think you two would really hit it off. You actually are working in the same coding language. You have the same goal. You live in the same country, whatever. You two should have a one-on-one and just see where it goes. And that most of the time will be enough for them to kickstart that kind of connection and that relationship. And so you can continue that throughout the entire mastermind, throughout the whole year, and just slowly get everyone connected one to one. There's other things that you can do in terms of inside the community when you see people posting or commenting, tagging the other people and kind of saying, hey, tag John, what do you think? Right? Like you answer this question, you would know this better than I do, sort of thing. But then another would be from a live programming perspective, having people do hot seats and also genius sessions. And so the genius session is, hey, everyone in this group has a different background, a different experience in life and in work. You have something to share with the other people. We want you to get on stage in front of this small group. It's not intimidating. We all see each other every week. We all know each other, but we're going to all benefit from learning from each other instead of everyone just listening to me the whole time. And so by doing a mixture of those types of events, the different types of things in the community, and then hooking people up one to one, I think you can create a lot of value there, because people may be looking for other things besides the transformation. They might be looking for accountability. They might be looking for friendship, right? Maybe they feel like they can't talk about this stuff with really anyone else. And so now they actually found that they may make their new best friend in this group, and they're texting all the time. And so those are some really cool outcomes that I've seen happen before in communities. Of course, you can't guarantee it, but you can do things to try to make that happen.
Like this. And on the other end of the spectrum, let's say I do have an audience of maybe 10,000 people on my newsletter, and I'm just starting a community for them. Like, what should be the first thing that I should ask, like, people to do when they join the community? I mean, how do I get that peer-to-peer conversation started when I turn on my community?
Hmm. Yeah, lots of thoughts are coming to mind. So I think it's good to capture data and feedback as much as possible. So you can be surveying ahead of time before even launching it of what would really make this community super valuable and super special for you. And there you would likely generate a lot of ideas. And it would be about determining which ones do you want to start with, because you don't want to start with all the ideas at the same time. You want to roll things out over time, because some of them will work. Some will work really well, some will work a little bit, and others won't work at all. And you'll just get rid of them. So you'll want to capture as much feedback as possible rather than you trying to always invent and just come up with the ideas yourself of what people are going to want and need. So just asking them is really easy and really helpful. And then from there, having like some kickoff events, some welcome events, getting to know each other types of things. And depending on the size, you might do a few different types of events. You might have people go around, introducing themselves, sharing their wins, like whatever it might be. There's other things you can do, like the way, in their bios, you could have a field for what they're looking for or what they need. And so someone might say, I need a business partner, or I need investors, or like I need a friend. I don't know. I need something. And so people can find each other in the directory based on that as well. But it's going to be up to you to lead that and to communicate that and to really set that example and make that as easy as possible, and likely to remind people. So one of the things I see people do is they say it once and then they think that's enough, right? Like I said it once, it's on the introduction post from 6 months ago. Everyone should just know how to do it. And it's like, no, people either don't read it, they don't remember, or they joined afterwards. So you need to just constantly be encouraging and communicating how people can be successful in the community, how they can get the most value. And one of the ways is by direct messaging other people, setting up one-on-one Zoom calls, creating connections and friendships. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah. And all of this sounds like, honestly, sounds like a lot of work. Is it true that as a creator, like if I'm a full-time creator already spending all my time writing newsletter or creating other types of content, then can I like build a community on the side, or do I really need to like hire somebody? And, if I don't hire somebody, like my community's not gonna work essentially.
Yeah. It's like any business. it's going to take time and it's going to be hard work. And I think people look at it like maybe it could be a secret hack to making lots of money and not having to do anything. And
Yeah.
it's not. But it doesn't have to be all consuming. And that's something that I've realized now with working with people like Justin Welsh was he specifically did not want it to be all consuming. And he's doing about 3 to 5 hours a week on the community, and everyone is very happy. So they're, getting a lot of value, and it's not taking up all of his time. It's going to depend on a few things, the size of the community, obviously, because the nature of the internet is most people are lurkers and they're not creators. They're not posting. Maybe they comment, and then maybe they don't even comment or post, but they read, and they're listening. So there's that silent majority that isn't really active, or you don't see them being very active, even though they might be listening and things like that. So from your perspective, you would be doing the types of events that you have scheduled. And so for some people, that's once a month. For other people, it's once or twice a week. Again, it goes back to your model and what you're promising and your price point. And then like Justin, he does his office hours about once a month it's like a 1.5 to 2 hour call. And so that's not a ton of time. Other people even have like a 3 day a week type of live events. That's a lot. And then there's ways to get help and support. So if you'll see that there will most likely be some top contributors in the community, some top performers. You can even reach out to them and offer to pay them to be a moderator or a coach or, like an assistant. And they already know and like the community so much, and they're kind of respected and known in the community that can work out well. I wouldn't recommend just hiring a VA from day one to try to handle community communication or anything like that. You want to make sure that it's authentic and real. But I don't think that it's going to take as much time as you might think.
Got it. Uh, the the platform question and the question
Mhm.
about members talking and how the platform should help it. So I've had a lot of people on the podcast who have their communities on Slack and they hate Slack, but the only reason why they're on Slack is a really valid reason. Their members are on Slack all day long due to their work, and that means that it's like one tap away from their workspace to their community space, and that means more engagement, more natural engagement for them. So, do you find this engagement to be a hurdle that you have to cross when you choose to build your community on Circle?
It's a great question. And I get this one a lot. And before Slack, the thing was Facebook groups, and the logic is everyone is on it. So that's why we need to be on it too. And I think that that's actually the reason why you should not be on it, because there's so much noise there and so much activity there that you just blend in with all of it. And it becomes really kind of overwhelming. And what's interesting is people have the tendency or the muscle memory to check Slack or to check Facebook and not to check your community. So they're just checking the tool. And so subconsciously in their mind, you are just one of all of the things happening there. So like when you log into a Facebook group, you're getting hit with a million notifications from all the other groups, and then all of the ads, and then all of the pop-ups, and all of the just, messages. It's so chaotic that you are going to be distracted and pulled away very, very quickly. So, what I think is a better way is to have your community offering be so clear and so compelling and so interesting and valuable that people are psychologically motivated to wanting to check it and wanting to engage with it. But I'm not going to kid you and say that people are just going to wake up the next day and immediately think to check Circle every day. And nor do they need to. And so this is actually one of the great things with Circle is that you have a very robust and customizable notification system. We encourage people to download the mobile app. You can even get a white label branded version so that it looks like it's just your app. And you can decide for each of the spaces and each of the events and things that you have in the community, should we push out a mobile notification, or should we send an email, or should we send neither? We want to keep it kind of calm and minimal. So there's definitely a balance there. But I would say the thing that people are going to check until the end of time is going to be their email. It's probably going to be one of the last things to go because it's so foundational. And so Circle has these great email notifications that will get pushed out whenever there is a comment or a post or something. And for people that turn that off or maybe don't want that as much, you can definitely customize that. And the thing that I like is, let's say you never log into the community. Well, every Thursday, you'll get a really nice roundup of all of the activity and the most popular things that have been happening, so that in one email, you can quickly see all of the stuff at one glance. And if you click on any of it, it'll bring you back into the community. So now you can easily engage and like it and comment it and do whatever you want. So I think if you don't figure out how to make a really valuable and engaging community and you just put it on Slack or Facebook, you're still in trouble. It's not going to save you just to be on one of those platforms, because people just won't use it. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great argument for this. And I think there's always going to be some tension between people who are ready to take this plunge for the long-term future about, just keeping their community on a platform built for community versus the immediate needs of engagement that somebody might have when they're starting a community.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like this. And you've mentioned this building your offer like a few times on this conversation and how important it is to build the right offer. So I want to double click on this because it was on your course as well about how offer creation can be the make or break between the business. So let's take the example that you gave earlier, where if I'm creating a community and I say like it's a community for marketers, then it's gonna get a meh reaction. So let's workshop this to make
Hmm.
this more powerful. How would you go about it? What's your process?
Yeah. So, one framework you can think about is, we help blank achieve blank so that blank. And so it could be, we help B2B marketers mm, level up their career or learn AI, stay on the cutting edge of AI, stay on the cutting edge of marketing. And Exit Five's tagline is actually, because nobody goes to school for B2B marketing. And so it could be so that you can accelerate your career faster than anyone else. I don't know. I'm just making it up with you. But you're giving a lot more clarity. And then that's only a headline or a tagline. You then need to spend a little bit of time actually breaking it down and saying, what does this really mean? And so you're going to get access to expert guest workshops and speakers that you can't get access to anywhere else, because Dave is going to tap his friends at the top of the marketing world and bring them in to do exclusive talks and master classes and Q&As. So that's extremely valuable. And then next is, we're going to have these focused weekly discussions around cutting edge topics in AI or in marketing that people are actually doing right now. And then get access to private job board, to a feedback engine, to ask questions anonymously to the group, so on and so on and so on. And so when you layer on all the additional benefits, get access to the annual conference for free, whatever that might be, and then you give the price, if the value is up here and the price is down here, it becomes a no-brainer. And then you have things like risk reversal, 7-day free trial, money back guaranteed, no commitments, all this type of stuff. Over 3,000 happy customers, right? You kind of layer it all on. And at that point, it's a pretty good offer, right? It becomes a
Mhm,
very easy to sell offer. So
mhm.
that would be for his offer. But the other offers, like the more transformational ones, those would look a little bit different, because it's not based on necessarily how many members and the member to member interaction as much. It's really more based on that transformational journey and what the outcome is.
I like this way of thinking. Okay, now I know we're running up on time, so I've got a few more final general community building questions for you. Are you ever afraid of your community going quiet or there not being enough conversations? And if that ever happens, then what levers do you pull to bring it back into, bring it back to life?
Yeah, great question. In the early days, I was very worried that people weren't talking enough and posting enough and all of this kind of stuff, because I launched my own transformational community to help people achieve the same outcome that I do in my one-on-one done for you work, but who maybe weren't ready for that, or it wasn't in their budget, or they were earlier in their journey. And so instead of having everything figured out like Exit Five, they were saying, hey, I have this idea. Can you help guide me on the path to building and launching this community and seeing if I can get people in there and make it work? And so that's what we do inside of Academy, which is our private community program. And so it doesn't have hundreds and hundreds of people in there. It's a much smaller program, because it's not about the member to member interaction as much. that is actually a really nice benefit is we have great member to member interaction, but it's more about that journey and that transformation that they're all going to achieve. So in the early days, there were not a lot of people in there, which means there's not a lot of posting, there's not a lot of activity, there's not a lot of stuff going on. So I did feel that pressure, and I was doing weekly calls, weekly coaching calls and Q&As, and just helping support people on their journeys. And so I noticed people would show up to those at a much higher rate than they would post in the community. And I think that's just natural, at least in my type of community. People get a lot of value out of the weekly calls. And what was really interesting to me was they didn't always have questions. They didn't always have things to share. They just showed up to listen. They just wanted to be in the room with the other people that were building the communities as well, and just said, "Hey, I'm actually like, I'm just working and I want to hear what other people are doing and what their questions are this week. I'm kind of good, but I wanted to show up anyway." And I thought that that was really cool because it plugs one of the holes that community solves, which is this isolation and this loneliness. Some of these people may not know anyone else in their life who's building a community, in their family or in their friends or in their work. And so this is a place where we can all come and talk about this thing and just listen in. And so sometimes people may not know the right questions to ask, but by hearing other people, they go, "Oh, that's actually a really good idea. I never thought about that. Now I'm going to do that." So the calls were working really, really well. And then little by little, I would see things trickle over into the community after the calls. And so people would post and they would say, "Hey, I had this thought after we got off the call today. I had this really good idea. Like, what do you guys think about this?" And one of the things that I would do is I'm always learning, right? Like this is such a new field. It's a new thing. From you saw from my post 4 years ago, I wasn't really focused on this. So this is something that I think I will continue to be able to learn and grow in the rest of my life, which is why I'm also so excited about it and passionate about it, because it taps into so many different things, from presentation to coaching to consulting to just to so many things. So on the calls, I started to then say, "I want to see you posting in the community, but not just like post for posting's sake, almost more posting for accountability." So I would say, "What are you going to do this week?" And someone would say, "I'm going to work on my landing page." And I would say, "Great. When you have your landing page ready, I want you to post it in the community so that we can all see it and give you some feedback on it. Would that be helpful?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea." And so sometimes people just don't know what they should be doing, or I've even had people say, "Am I allowed to post this in the community?" It's like, yeah, of course. Post as much as you want. Like post anything, if it's really bad, I'll take it down. But I work with great people. No one's going to post something that's really bad. So sometimes people need to have almost permission, like given to them or encouraged to say, "Come post when you're struggling, post when you're winning, when you have questions, or just post when you have updates and you want to show people the progress that you're making." So that's what I would say. And in the early days, I did get a little bit concerned about it when people weren't coming to the calls or weren't posting. But what I started doing was just checking in with people one on one, just sending them a DM, just saying, "Hey, how are you doing? I haven't seen you lately. Is everything okay? Is everything good?" And many times they would say, "Oh, yeah, everything's great. I've just been really busy and I was on vacation. I was sick, but everything's good." And so for me, I started to realize analytics dashboards are great, and we all want to see the best looking analytics ever with everything green and up and to the right and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's about human beings. And so if the human being, if your customer, if your client, if your member, if they are happy and they are making progress on their journey and getting closer to their goal, that's all that matters, right? They don't need to post every day, or they don't need to come to every call. So I just started checking in, and as long as people are telling me that things are good and giving me thumbs up, then I'm okay.
Yeah, I love this approach. And this is such a great philosophy of giving in to the flow of things, essentially.
Yes, exactly. Right. And so I'm
Yeah,
not trying to force it anymore. I'm not trying to say, "Oh, I need to see 5 posts a week or this is not working." I'm just letting the flow go. And it's
yeah,
been great. It's really taken the weight off and the pressure off. And the other thing, especially with my program, is it was a little bit hard for me to go from the done for you to the done with you, because with the done for you service that I do, I put all of the responsibility on my shoulders. Like when you pay me to build your community, I'm going to build it, guaranteed. We're going to do it right. We're going to do it on time. We're going to meet every week. And in a few weeks, it's going to be done. And so that's just the way that we've always been doing it. And so then when I switched to this done with you model, this community model, it's the difference of giving them the fish versus teaching them how to fish. And so I can teach them, but then they have to actually do it. And the thing that I've realized is some people thought that they wanted to do it. And then when I teach them and show them, then they realize, you know what? I don't think I really want to do this. And you also have to just go with that flow and say that's okay, right? Like I'm committed to showing up and doing what I've promised. I can only control what I can control, which is my effort, my presence, my input. But then it's up to you to do the work. You know, you're paying me for my advice, my coaching, showing you a plan. But at the end of the day, it's your responsibility, not mine, whether you do the work or not. And so I still try to make it so that everyone can succeed as easily and quickly as possible, but not everyone will. And that's just the way things are. And so you have to also just be okay with that.
Okay. I love this approach. And this brings me to my last question, which is how do you think about the churn problem in community memberships?
So I think about it in a few different ways. One, it's a part of nature, right? It's like the cycle of life. We're all born and we all die, and we will all churn at some point from everything. I've heard an expression, especially in the client agency world, the first day you get a client is the first day that you start losing them. And no matter how good you are, there will always be an endpoint. And so I used to look at that kind of negatively, but there's actually kind of a positive side of this, of just realizing that there is a natural expectation of how long you should be in this community for. So instead of trying to avoid it, I've just tried to embrace it. And that's something I ask my clients ahead of time. What would be a natural amount of time that someone would be in this community? So, for example, some of my client communities that I've worked with, they help women get pregnant who have been struggling to get pregnant, right? Well, after you've gotten pregnant and after you've had the baby, you probably don't need to be in a community that helps you get pregnant anymore. And so, right, like that's not something you're probably going to be in for 5 years. Maybe you're in it for like a year. Other communities might be even much shorter than that. Like maybe it's a place where you can go and you can ask some questions, kind of like Exit 5. In some ways, you might go in and you might ask a couple questions and you get some really great answers and you say, okay, that's all I needed. And I'm going to exit or I'm going to churn. And so the other thing I'll say is that one of the problems I see a lot of times is value to subscription misalignment. So, what I mean by that is, let's go back to your example of we're going to help a developer who has a job transition to a full time successful solopreneur career, right? And we say that that's probably going to take 12 months just to be realistic. Maybe you can do it faster. Maybe it'll take a little longer, but like, let's just set expectations. You're not going to do this in 30 days. So if we were to charge on a monthly subscription basis, then for the first month, they would say, okay, I'm paying this. How much value did I get? Well, zero or like very low because I have not achieved the goal. And that's going to be the same thing. Month two, did you get the value? No. Month three, no. And so they're just going to be having this negative experience when they see the money coming out of their bank account every month. And then after month six, like, why am I paying for this thing where I'm still not successful yet? Whereas if you were to say on day one, okay, it's 12 months and we're going to charge you $1,000 upfront for the entire year. And then they decide, if I achieve this outcome, would that be worth $1,000 for me? And if they say yes, then they make the decision once and then boom, they're all in, they're committed, and now they never have to think about it again. And there's really no way to churn, right? Like now it's just about, okay, good. We've gotten the money thing out of the way. Now let's just focus on making you successful. And that's it. So that's something to think about is how does the value get created in your community? And if it's very long term, then having a short term monetization strategy is maybe not the best.
Love that. This is such a great way of thinking about the churn problem. And once again, I really admire this approach of giving into the flow of things that you have. All right, Jordan. So we're almost at time. I'm not gonna, keep you longer than you need to. So thank you so much for joining me on this amazing conversation. And do you have any final, piece of advice or anything that you want the listeners to go away with that they should keep in mind while they're building their community?
Thank you so much for having me. This has really been super fun. I love talking about this stuff. So, yeah, it's like the thing I love about this community model is how unique and personalized it is to everyone. So, everyone's community is different. what works for me and mine will not necessarily work for you and yours. So you really want to have a long-term mindset. This is not a get rich quick scheme. It's like the opposite. But you can really build up a significant, stable, real business based on what you love and what you're passionate about. Maybe it's you study the stock market and the markets every single day, and you are like analyzing everything, and there's a community of people around you that just like want to hear from you, and so you get to nerd out on this thing, and your clients and your members, they just eat it up. Or it might be something totally different around the business world, around the tech side of things. We have health. You can just do it in any niche. People want connection, and they want to be connected with other people. And in this world where AI is going to be eating up everything and just dominating, and it's going to be crazy and scary, and none of us can fully comprehend what's going to change in the next 5 or 10 years. The good news is people are not going to change in terms of they want to be connected with other people, right? People, we want real, we want authenticity, we want relationship, we want to be known, seen, and heard. And so you can know that you're building into a business model and a thing that cannot get put out of business by AI. I've seen things like AI therapists and AI coaches, and you can ask those things questions, right? And they give you information, but they're not going to give you, hopefully not, relationship and connection and true intimacy and any of this stuff. And so I love this idea that community can be the antidote to AI. And so just know that if anything can really be known or certain, I believe that this is an area that you can build into confidently, knowing that it's not going to get wiped out. And just keep that long-term mindset of, if you really had to stick to something for 10 years, would this be the thing that you could see yourself sticking to? And so it probably wouldn't be the trend of the day. It would be something deeper, more meaningful, that you're more passionate about, because you're going to need to iterate a lot. You're going to have an initial idea, and maybe you get a little bit of traction, but then you're going to need to make a change. You're going to need to release V1, V2, V3, and then eventually something is really going to hit and explode for you, and you'll just go all in on it. So you want to have that patience and that ability to spend the time that it requires, because the thing that I've learned in life and in entrepreneurship is it always seems to take longer than we think it will. We think we can get this done in 30 days and it takes 3 months. And we think in 1 year from now, we're going to have this big business and it's doing great, and it takes 3 years or 10 years. But if you just keep going, that is the trick. That is the game, is just don't quit playing the game. If you can just stay in long enough and you can be healthy and sustain yourself, then ultimately you win. So that would be my advice.
I love this. This is such a perfect note to end this interview on. Thank you once again for joining me, and it has been such a pleasure learning from you, Jordan.
Thank you so much, Nitesh.